Your customers want to rep you because they have a token backed by your revenue. You want to scale because you're taking out loans against your future cash flow, so you have that incentive.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Screen with Gramajo, the podcast where we unravel the untold stories of the best on-chain builders and creators. I'm your host, Gramajo, an avid crypto enthusiast that's been in the space since 2012. All right, so today we're covering a pretty beefy topic, but one that I think is super interesting. So I've gone down the rabbit hole of Revnets. It's really like reimagining tokens overall and on-chain businesses. So in today's open internet, traditional business models often lead to misaligned incentives, value extraction. So that's like your typical token. And then usually open source projects are super reliant on donations. They struggle with enforcing revenue. And really just revenue as a whole is an issue in Web3. And so with the Revnet model, basically your customers can become investors, investors can be investors, everyone could be treated like the same. And that's what Revnets is. It's basically pretty groundbreaking technology that tokenizes financial structures, and they're designed to really align everyone involved, from builders to the customers to investors, really anyone that's participating in your specific Revnet or community. They create openly accounted financial networks. So think of like Bitcoin, like everyone knows the rules. Everyone's kind of playing their own game based on those rules. They're like the rules can't really change. It's all immutable. So as the network is growing, everyone is hopefully their value is growing as well. It fosters collaborative, open communication, sustainable growth. And this is kind of where I see the future of financial transparency and kind of community-driven growth. I think Revnets can play a really big role in this. So yeah, let's dive in. Do a quick intro of who's Jango. Feel free to dox as much as you like. And when did you get into Web3?
Sure thing. Yeah, long time coming. Super glad to be here talking to you. Anytime folks give a little opportunity and patience and bandwidth to dive into the Revnet puzzle. I always find it productive because you can kind of start poking at various aspects and things, and kind of I learn as in so doing too. I started working on Juicebox in 2020, and it was kind of a happy accident. I was really curious about how to program business models in more interesting ways, and was working with banking APIs at the time, and then was living with someone who was working at Coinbase, what kind of gave me the crypto exposure, more from the speculative side, and realized quickly in DeFi summer, reading some of these lending contracts, that this is the way I need to be thinking about and expressing a lot of the ideas and concerns that I had with regard to business models. And started writing Juicebox with a bunch of friends, doing so in the way that I enjoy doing it, which is in the open and kind of collaborating with and supporting those who came in and wanting to contribute. And then a lot of those ideas turned the main use cases into fundraising, a fundraising platform to kind of take in funds and issue a treasury-backed token. And have been continuing that, ending that journey since. I'm still very much drawn to the programmable business model concept, and now through the lens of these past few years of being in crypto and seeing a lot of these experiments show up. And yeah, super glad to be here. Been, working with, had the chance to work with some great people along the way, and excited to meet you and continue that journey.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot about you from nouns. Like a lot of people had a lot of positive things to say about you, and definitely, I think the best way I can like summarize it for myself while I was doing the research was Juicebox is super interesting to me, and like I think we have a couple tools, kind of like like we have like the tooling around DAOs is getting better and better, and Juicebox is still like proving like the test of time, I would say. And you've also raised for like some of the biggest DAOs that were trying to be formed at one point with like Constitution DAO and a couple other pretty crazy ideas out there. So yeah, like definitely. I don't know if you were the one that built the V1, or like you're like the main dev like for the building of Juice DAO. But if you are, definitely very impressive stuff to say the least.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been really fun to build, and even more fun kind of watching what folks want to do with it. Stressful at times, for sure.
Yeah,
that's part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, I mean, spending a lot of time architecting, building, testing, and then when it's in the wild, you just have to trust your work and just go for it and not hold back very much. But then kind of go into the next phase of research to support the next generation types of applications and platforms and businesses. And there's some things you can control and some things you can't. It's but it's the general problem of tokenizing money, and what does that mean in a world where I think we've come off a lot of like slop coin type things where there's meaningful attention and activity, but what does it really mean underneath the hood? I think that really draws me in, and Juicebox has been such a great playground to experiment with these models, and continues to be that, and now more explicitly through the lens of Revnets as a specific type of Juicebox. It's one of many possible types of token experiments.
Yeah, it's so funny because like I think a lot of people, like if you were like, hey, I created like a token launchpad, a lot of like sentiments like another one, like like how is this one different from the other one and all that. But yours is actually like honestly like Revnets is very truly really different from another token launchpad. Like I think like from the outside, if you don't spend much time researching it, with the amount of thought that you've put into it, which is evident based on that memo that you published, that there's a lot of thought into it. It's not just like, hey, we're just building another launchpad for founders or for revenue generating businesses, and the only difference is like maybe the percentage of the split of the fees or something like that. Like that's the only differentiator. Maybe branding or marketing, like marketing tends to be like it's actually advantageous or an edge for sure in Web3 if you have really good work, like a good marketing arm. But yours is actually like legit. It's actually very different. Like there's very few token launchpads out there that are really experimenting with new things. Like I would say that it's like the closest thing I could think of for me personally, in terms of trying new things, would be on the Solana side of things with MetaDAO, like in their token launchpad now that they're experimenting with that, and how it leads to a DAO. I know it's a little different because we were getting into it where I was like, and we could dive into the example that I have in mind because I learned by examples.
Sure. Yeah.
So
great.
so I'm trying to start like a Web3 golfing brand, right? Like merchandise. Sure. And sometimes I'm like, like some of these things should be like just like a DAO. And then I know we were going back and forth. You're like, oh, maybe Juicebox actually might be better if you're like want more DAO tooling. And then the other aspect of it, like the revenue sharing aspect of it's really nice that it's like automatic within the Revnets like UI and that experience. And so it might make sense more in that sense. So anyways, what is Revnets? How is it different from any other token launchpad? Like it really is, but that's like the lead up that I'll give to everyone is that it really is actually different.
And we could try to play with different examples along the way, because I also benefit from, like, I enjoy thinking about these things in a more concrete thing, because it can be very abstract otherwise.
Yeah.
The way I think about it is most fundraisers or kind of token plays over the past few years has been, money comes in from some dimension. Sometimes it's VCs and some backdoor agreement to create liquidity, or sometimes it's in the Juicebox case, in the like vanilla Juicebox case, the money goes into the pay terminal, and then your project's tokens go out, or they get created and then airdropped, and then the money that comes in, like the ETH or the USDC that comes in, just gets paid out to the team to operate with. And now you have tokens that are in existence that have some relationship to the project. Oftentimes that's been through governance. This idea of like the treasury exists in the box, and you have tokens that get to say when the money can leave the box to be paid to pay out certain people or whatever. And it's sometimes feels like a charade of decentralization, because the governance is really, especially a governance that's tradable, that's easy to kind of manipulate financially. It's still kind of power aggregating there, and then the money that is fundraised is always at risk. And the money that's in there doesn't really back the value of the tokens. It's just kind of this governance relationship. Or no governance relationship, and the tokens are just air and a meme, kind of a market energy, and then the money still is being used to kind of operate with. A Revnet flips that on its head a bit. So you have the money that comes in from fundraisers or from revenues. For instance, in the merchandising example, let's say you sell, give me an example of something you sell.
T-shirts.
T-shirts, great. So let's say you're selling a $30 t-shirt. Normally you would think of that sale as like, all right, here's a shirt, and then the $30 goes into my pocket, into my bank, and to kind of my accounts receivable, whatever you want to call it. In the Revnet sense, the money, the $30 goes into the Revnet, which is a box, smart contract. And when the money hits the box, it's going to generate tokens. So it's going to tokenize that revenue. It's going to split those tokens at a percent that you decide ahead of time. Let's just say, for the sake of like the simplest example, you're going to split the tokens 100% to yourself. So the money goes into the box and you generates tokens, and they all go to you. That's essentially the model of like the $30 going directly into your pocket, right?
Yeah.
Revenue's in the box. You generate all the tokens for yourself. The only way to access the money in the box is to cash out your tokens and then access the funds in return. Now, if you start to widen that split, let's say it's at 90% of the tokens issued go to you, and then 10% get issued back to the payer. Then all of a sudden, you've created the system where the $30 goes into this box. You keep the majority of the tokens that are an option against that revenue, 90% of it. And then 10% you're starting to distribute to your customers and those who are paying you more. So tokens get issued at the rate of money coming in. And then now you've kind of created this loyalty points system that's immediately being distributed to your most loyal customers, to your biggest spenders, biggest investors. And you, as the operating team and your customers, all have the same token, and you're relating to the revenue in the box in the same way. So you, as the builder, have a choice to make. All right, do you want to access underlying funds now and cash out your tokens now? Or do you want to hold on and build more revenue into the box, which the token issuance can decrease over time, such that you have incentive to kind of try to push the network towards growth over time, and you want to benefit from that growth. So that gives you, the builder, instead of receiving the $30 and immediately having access to it, as well as a percentage of tokens, it gives you the option. So you have tokens, and you have the option to access underlying revenue or hold the tokens and kind of participate in the project's growth. And then there's some follow-on incentives because of this relationship between the tokens and the fact that they're backed by the revenue, that you can take out loans against your future cash flow, kind of self-contained within the Revnet structure, which gives you operating capital as well as exposure to your future revenue streams, as well as distributing loyalty points that accrue in value to your most loyal customers, and has this pretty productive dynamic where your customers want to rep you because they have a token backed by your revenue. You want to scale because you're taking out loans against your future cash flow, so you have that incentive. And then investors also have easy due diligence since they're putting in potentially millions of dollars and there's no rug risk, right? It's very clear where that money goes. And then I think the most important kicker for Revnets is that it's deterministic. You set rules up front when you deploy a Revnet, and the few rules you set are at what pace will your issuance decrease over time. So let's say you're issuing 1,000 of your token per one USDC received, and then every 30 days it's going to decrease by, let's say, 20%. So then next month it's 800 of your token per USDC received, on and on and on.
Yeah.
And then what percentage of that is split to yourself and what percent goes to the payer into the Revnet. And that's all decided up front. So at that point, it kind of just runs like Bitcoin, where there's no governance, there's no burden of management. Everyone can play the rules as they're described, and the numbers, matter insofar as it paces how your project evolves over time. But it doesn't really matter about the micro specifics. Similarly to how Bitcoin, 21 million is just a number. Halvenings every so and so number of blocks. It's just a number. The specifics don't really matter. What matters is that they exist and are enforced, and we can each play our version of our game relative to it.
Yeah.
So I believe, less governance is good, and revenue-backed tokens are good to actually promote growth and sustain open source. Because open source has a pretty hard time monetizing if we're not being very specific about how we're treating revenues in that system. Because any extractive energy is going to just be forked and removed. So how do we build revenue systems that actually sustain an open network of code and of people?
I think that's what I liked about Juice, going back to Juiced a little bit, since I haven't launched a Revnet or anything, but just when I was looking at Juiced, when you gave me that insight, hey, maybe you want to go to Juiced, I like that the fees were upfront and transparent because, it should be, like you said, I'm at the stage where I want to see people succeed. It's almost better that you guys not you, but just a collective you of developers, kind of figure out what sustainable looks like early on. I think it's almost worse sometimes. Maybe, I don't know. Depend. Some MBA could argue to me the difference, but it being hey, it's open source, it's free. Then 5 years down the line, you're actually, JK, we're going to roll back certain features and make them premium. Strava is doing this. I don't know. It hurts a little bit more, or it just feels a little shisty or shady, I would say. And versus hey, you just tell me right up front, it's 2% of X going forward. And maybe there's tiers based on how much revenue you're putting in it or whatever. It's just better for me. It gives me more confidence that hey, if this thing really works, it works for you, works for me, and you guys are still around, and projects just die constantly in the space.
Yeah, same page. And we're always dogfooding our tools to structure our own projects, because I think this is the ethos we believe in. These are the dependencies we want to create with certain projects. Things are expensive to make. Our time is valuable. We need to really, be deliberate about the things we're depending the dependencies that we create for our projects. And I think, you're right. The worst is when someone says something is free or cheap, and then later has full leverage to then move that around on a, based on someone's decision, which may not even be the people who were involved in the beginning of a project. Might be more of a business-oriented persona later on. So I'm a big believer in being revenue forward, but just having it fixed in place, and it can't change. So you can't reduce the 2.5% fee. You can't increase it, and the fee goes into a network as opposed to into someone's pocket. So it gives you a little confidence that, like, okay, I am part of this network by paying the fee. Similar to, imagine if every month that you pay a Netflix bill, you get some Netflix token that's correlated to that fee that you're paying, the revenue they're making, and correlated to kind of your journey alongside that company over time, and like as it scales. I think that would be a better fee that most folks would kind of evaluate our current state of market, of capitalism, of consumerism, and feel kind of more a part of it, feel a sense of belonging in that system, as opposed to a system where I think like there's consumers on one side and there's the backdoor kind of stock model on the other side, and then a bunch of private things in between that no one has access to or a lot of clarity behind. But at the same time, it's not always easy. It's not always easy to find sustainability. Like, fundraising is hard because we're fundraising using our own systems, and investors tend to prefer their tried and true systems. And it takes a while to develop new standards, but we're making good progress, and the folks we get to work with, I think, are ahead of the curve. And as long as there's some forward momentum there, I'm confident that eventually it'll catch on, and then it'll be like super viral and useful once folks can look at a Revnet and easily understand how it works, similar to how they can the pump.fun or a clanked token, or kind of these more one button, one click systems.
Yeah. I wanted to double click on something real quick that you said earlier about like less governance, just more on the revenue like side. Is that your thought? Like, what is your thought on DAOs then, since you started Juicebox DAO, and which helps people set up DAOs and all that? Like, has your opinion changed on DAOs overall, or is that just like,
I think a DAO means a bunch of things. A token means a bunch of things. The way Juicebox DAO has always worked is it is project ID number 1 on the Juicebox protocol. It takes a 2.5% fee of any outbound fund from any project into it, and it issues JBX out when it receives fees, and that JBX governs the money in the tank. So that was our take on DAOs. It's very much of this ethos I've been talking about. But Juicebox DAO, it still manages that project, and it can make changes according to its governance schedule. So it's not a Revnet in that it's not fixed forever. And the money that comes in, JBX holders can decide, okay, let's pay out these developers, let's pay out these work orders to actually do certain things. And the current state of things is we've used basically all of the money that has been contributed to Juicebox DAO or paid in fees. And we have a bunch of JBX outstanding amongst community, amongst builders, and stuff like that. And I think we managed to use the funds really productively to get to certain engineering outcomes and product outcomes. But we also learned a lot about, our system of, the energy we spend governing, the systems of fragility. There's a bunch of things that I think we could have done better, that I think we were taking into this next phase of trying to run businesses on chain and helping folks create platforms so that we have more on chain like business finance, entrepreneurial finance. And I think my current take with Revnets is no one wants to govern a long tail of small treasuries. I think it's more effective to have small executive teams that are working alongside of a broader network to grow a revenue base that benefits the network, such that the network is encouraged to work for itself over time. there might be governance exercises therein, but it's not like I don't think we need to be. I don't think every business needs like a governance flow where its customers are helping govern things. I think that's not what customers want. That's not what entrepreneurs want. I think you just need to have the right incentives that encourage a high ratio of like reduce wasteful spending and increase revenue growth. If you can create that set of incentives that allows a team to work towards that end, allows customers to work towards that end, then you have a system where like revenue is treated productively and customers want to pay it, and builders are making good decisions of like, okay, if we are to spend, how might we spend in a way that's gives us the best chance of driving further growth, as opposed to succumbing to the narrative of the day as to like how they should be spending their money, or how they should be treating certain bits of the ecosystem. I don't know. I think like there's DAOs in their pure governance form aren't necessarily automatically productive. But it means 1,000 things. A token can mean anything you program it to mean. So a Revnet is a DAO in the sense that it is decentralized. It is far more autonomous in a governance schema. And I guess it's an organization, but Juicebox DAO is going to continue existing, and like Juicebox DAO's goal as a capital allocator is to basically create a book of assets, of really valuable assets, and we think Revnets give us like reliable returns. So if we're looking at a project to invest in or to give a grant to that furthers kind of the Juicebox ecosystem, we would rather that project model themselves as a Revnet. So that when we put money in there, we have a token and we can track with that token's like in our book of assets. We know exactly how that token works. And we can help that project grow deliberately, and not just in a kind of narrative sense where we're just hyping it or whatever. Like we can actually help drive growth and track that progress. And that's cool for Juicebox DAO to kind of play that role of like being in the position of knowing the information and how the stuff works, and trying to lead by example of allocating to great people and great teams and great ideas that fit this mold, and understand kind of this perspective on how this upcoming online economy might function.
Yeah. Kind of going back to like leading by example, and I see you're wearing the banana hat too. What was the premise like?
Also, shouts ETH.limo. I got a ETH.limo shirt on.
Oh, I love that. I was actually just thinking about how I need to set up my blog post into ETH.limo.
Yes.
Literally today, I was like thinking about it. I was like, man, I really should do that. I have like a list of like projects to do, and that's one of them. And I'm like, I need to move this one up, I think, because I don't know. I just feels
it's
like
super easy. You could do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, it just feels like it's time. I was like, I think it's time. So going back to like leading by example. So I guess it's almost like a 2-part question. It was like, why now? Like, why now did you launch Revnets? And then the second thing was kind of like, why the Banana PFP project? Is that more like a meta on like, hey, back in 2021, we were kind of just launching PFP projects and we've seen a lot of them go by the wayside, and you were like, I want to show you like what a new version of a PFP project could look like, like, and here's this banana, like I forget the name of the banana, I forget the name of So like, what do you think led you to get to this point, like the culmination of like why Revnets now, and also why the banana like PFP project?
So I feel like a lot of our take on the timing of things is a little less market driven, and just the consequence of that's when the obvious next thing to build has taken shape, and we've done all the research, implementation, testing, and then here we are. Why Revnets now is that so the prereqs to Revnets were Juicebox v4, which is Omni-Chain. So it's Juicebox that runs on all EVM chains. So when you deploy a project, you don't have to choose which chain you're on, like which chain you're going to launch your token on. You can just kind of checkbox style be like, I want to be on mainnet, Base, Arbitrum, Optimism. And you can deploy your project, and then anyone can pay you on any of those chains. And then you're going to issue your one unified token for your project to people wherever they paid you. So if they paid you on Arbitrum, that's where they're going to get your token, mainnet, etc. Then they can bridge their tokens, and then kind of the revenue gets sloshed around underneath. And the reason there is because, if you're fundraising or if you're a business, like, you don't care where your customers pay you. You just want to receive revenues and receive funds. But you do want a unified network, unified token network. So you don't need to have an off-chain entity that's intermediating between all of these chains, right? Which happens a lot now is, great, I'm running my business on 4 different chains. I'm getting revenue on all those chains. Well, I'm kind of extracting that revenue into my multi-sig, into my bank, and then doing some retroactive token dance to kind of figure out how to involve my community in the progress. Whereas Juicebox kind of has that automated function, right, where you have a treasury-backed token, Omni-Chain. So it's you don't need that off-chain entity. And Revnets make that flow particularly nice because you deploy it once and you never make changes again. So they can all kind of be in sync. All the rules can kind of be in sync across chains. And then we have a bunch of projects ourselves that are revenue. We like to build things like Juicebox itself takes a revenue cut into what was before the JBX token. And on V4, since it is Omni-Chain, we couldn't just point revenues into JBX. We needed to point revenues into a different structure. And then we have other projects that take fees, and just thought experiment of like, how might we organize this business model such that we like it as builders, we like it as investors, and we like it as users, right? So really kind of trying to fit the model that solves our problems. And then Revnet started to kind of be schemed with like different sets of words, the long like tail of finding the right words and the right stories to tell ourselves, and then tell the world of how this stuff works. Took years, but it's really just solving a need for ourselves and understanding that, like, okay, it's easy to slap Juicebox on various EVM chains, but then you create problems of like someone paying a fee on Arbitrum is going into a different treasury than someone paying a fee on mainnet. And those are both token issuing treasuries, but those tokens aren't correlated. So you create kind of a mess, and you need to first take a step back. Keep Juicebox just on mainnet. Don't touch L2s for like way too long. Everyone's like, L2 is the big meta, but we're like, mainnet is the only thing that we can do soundly currently, while then taking the time to figure out how to do Omni-Chain projects, which is the prereq for us to then build our business and offer it to folks. And then Revnets being the answer to, like, we don't want to open up more governance burdens. One mothership governance body is great. And then it just needs to govern a bunch of revenue tokens that it believes in. So kind of a bunch of just following these strings of thoughts of what we need for our own projects to be. It's hard to know what it's like. What it's not like to be successful, because we can't really control that outcome. But to be successful insofar as we feel like we're building on solid rock, and then we can focus on the things we want to focus on, which tend to be the more creative aspects of things. And then Banny as a project is very much just it's pulling off the shelf a project that's been lingering in Juicebox for a while. Like, Banny has been the symbol of Juicebox since the early days. Sage drew Banny and put Banny on Juicebox.money home screen on day one. So when Constitution DAO, Moon DAO, Shark DAO, a bunch of these early projects were coming up, Banny was like front and center, and it was on the share link and kind of grew into a bunch of lore within the community. And then we had this art collection that was just kind of the bananas and then various outfits. And then in thinking about how we might pull that off the shelf and use it as like a canonical example of how Revnets work, it just made sense to really do the project correctly, make it a shopping experience. And then we're going to continue doing drops, kind of selling outfits. And it's a cartoon, obviously, but the funds from the sales go into the Ban Revnet. So it's a great part of my demo when I'm showing folks, or I've folks who are curious about using Revnets, but it's hard to visualize. It's like, all right, great, let's go to retail.banny.eth.sucks. All of a sudden, we have a little bit of like comedic relief. You get a sense for who we are and our taste for culture and things. And we can kind of just click around and see where the money goes. You can see that when you buy something, you get BAN tokens as a customer. You can see that gives you like real value. That's backed by real value of the network. And it helps us get to that aha moment from our folks. And then obviously it's accompanied by, hey, if you read between the lines, you can maybe imagine how a real world commerce system works with Revnets behind the scenes. But I think we're most familiar in the digital space with just treating it as PFPs and kind of brand building. But yeah, Benny's important.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, I think it took me because I read the memo. It's funny, I don't know how I came upon it. I think it was actually through Rocket Man, to be quite honest. And I think he was looking at it for flows. And I saw that he posted the memo of like what a Revnet is. And I remember I clicked on it thinking it would be like a casual 2-minute read, drink it while I'm drinking an espresso. And I'm like scrolling and I was like, oh, I gotta pause and I gotta come back to this when I have time. So I did that. So I did that within a week or two, and I was like, okay, I still wasn't clicking for me. And I think you're right. I just went to the website, and I remember seeing the Banana PFP, and I was like, oh, it started clicking, like you said, and I was like, I could see why Rocketman's excited about this. I could see, didn't see many people just understood it really. The potential it had. Yeah, it's hard. Exactly. It's very hard.
It's different. And I think the hardest bit is when you don't have examples and you're not really concerned with a marketing, a preordained marketing budget to kind of splash around. You're all the economics of how we build stuff is really it's according to the systems that we build. So it doesn't really incentivize kind of having these kind of big splashy marketing things. So it takes time, but building a canonical example and having that be a quick thing to show is, I think, has been really helpful. But we really do need more content. We need more explainers. I think as we have new examples like flows and some other upcoming platforms that I'm really excited about, those will be great to talk about and to kind of show diagrams for. So I think we're in early days, and any help we get to try to tell the story, it's helpful, because I don't think folks like me or other folks who've been really deep in how this works, or the stuff behind the scenes, are really well equipped to meet people where they are quite yet. But I think we're pretty good at taking folks who are maybe a little bit more intimate with their curiosity kind of through various details and examples. But things like Banny, and shouts Perry for building that website. It's gorgeous. Sage for the outfits. We're about to do drop 2, so we have 20 new outfits coming out. And so it's always a fun thing. And I work on these are my homies. So it's working with your friends on fun side projects that play into the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what it's all about.
All right, let's take a quick break. Hope you're enjoying this episode. This episode was made possible with the support of my premium subscribers, Seattle Dog, Mac Vinyls, Brennan, and Humpty. If you'd like to receive exclusive drops, access to token-gated content, make sure to subscribe to my Hypersub. You can also subscribe via Patreon or Substack. Try to keep it pretty accessible. I also will be going to Mountain DAO, which is a Solana builder conference. So I'll be bringing a lot of like behind the scenes content for you, for anyone that's not a premium subscriber. And I'll also be going to DevConnect this year as well. So lots to come in terms of premium subscribers, and we're still having fun here on Chain. All right, let's get back to it. Yeah, I actually wanted to run an example by you, and it's like fresh off the press. So I figured I would get your take on this because it's kind of like, it's like when you want a car, you just see that car now. Like that's all you see out in the world. It's like when I found out about Futarchy, every time I would see something, I'm like, man, like Futarchy can solve that. Like I don't understand why we're not using that. So when I found out about Revnets, now whenever I start seeing certain scenarios, I'm like, like couldn't that be a Revnet? Like that sounds like it would be better as a Revnet. So I want to get your take on this. So I'm going to share my screen with you.
Okay.
And this will be a good one for the Farcaster people, since I know you don't spend too much time on this. So Debbie, who works over at Privy and also has written a book, let me know if you could see that.
Can you like zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, got you.
Nice, perfect.
So she had a statement about like having the feminine urge to like found another company, and also it being a sports bar. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about like once she breaks even, so like the initial investment is done, then essentially sharing back revenue with the people that like of the profits. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, okay, isn't this just a Revnet? Like, is this a use case that you would recommend?
So yes. Like you could, all right. So what this makes me think of is,
because like, yes, a crowdfund would work. I think what gets me is like, now she's also talking about having like, part of the profits going back to the people that gave to the crowdfund.
Yeah, so there's two bits of this one. There's the first is raising funds to make the initial purchase.
Yeah.
And then second is the revenue, like the kind of revenue recycling exercise.
Correct.
To actually grow a customer base and potentially expand from there. You could solve them both by, I think a fun way to do this would be you set a initial, so you make a Revnet. Let's call it is there a name? Bushwick Sports Bar Budget. So BSB. It's not. Yeah, that's a decent acronym. So you make the BSB Revnet on stage one. Let's say you issue 1 million BSB per 1 ETH that comes in. And you're just going to kind of keep that window open for, let's say, like 3 months. Anyone can contribute, and you get the same deal. And the point is, during this 3 months, you want to really kind of cultivate that grassroots fundraise to make the budget to actually make the purchase.
Yeah.
Afterwards, maybe we want to then, so once that stage one is over, once those 3 months have passed, then maybe we want to decrease issuance so we started at 1 million BSV per ETH. Maybe we want to directly decrease it to like 250K BSB per ETH. So you're automatically, the next dollar in this next phase is getting 4 times less BSB per ETH. So it kind of creates this first moment that's more fundraising oriented.
Yeah.
And the second stage lasts forever. Let's just say it's 250K BSB per ETH, decreasing at, let's say, like 50% every year. So every year, another kind of halvening happens, right? So you can kind of think of an early 4x like phase, and then afterwards halvenings every year. And then you route revenues. So everyone who contributed to the fundraise at first, maybe kind of the split of those tokens goes to majority to Debbie, so she can finance the initial expense for getting the real estate. And then the split thereafter is, let's say, 70% of tokens go to Debbie to kind of fund operations for every unit, for everything that they sell. Say you sell $10 Guinness or whatever, you are that $10 goes in the Revnet. Debbie gets kind of 70% of those tokens, and then 30% goes to the purchaser, and you kind of continue this system of like it's not like a direct like surplus jar, which I think is the point of the post is maybe a little simpler. It's more like is like surplus is directly returned to like an initial customer, an initial investor set. In this case, you would kind of consider your long tail of folks paying in with revenue or fund or chipping in over time as part of kind of the investor pool over time, but they're getting less BSB per ETH. So you're kind of continuing this issuance cycle over time, but revenue is consistently going out to the fringes of the network, to previous customers, previous investors, and the like. The one thing I will say though that gives me pause on sticking a Revnet on this at first is that there seems to be a pretty explicit kind of initial fail condition. Like if you don't raise enough money, maybe you want to unwind the business from the start, or do you want to kind of issue refunds, which makes me think maybe treating the first part of the fundraiser as just like a kind of a standalone thing, and then later adding the Revnet component to actually manage the revenue bit might give you a better exit condition in case things don't go according to plan. But yeah, the idea of every sale going into a Revnet and every customer kind of repping your brand, your token, your loyalty point, I think achieves what she's going for there, like a community owned revenue stream.
Yeah, because my initial concern was like you could strap on really like any crowdfunding app that exists out there, but I figured the pain point would be the distribution of the revenue after the fact. You know, that's a lot of like administration burden on you, essentially. You know, like that number exponentially gets bigger and crazier for you unless you start making some really hard decisions where you're like, you know, if you do less than X, like you get nothing, or I don't know, you know, because essentially like if someone just, even if they give $1, you know, someone's going to want something because that's how you phrased it. And that could be 1 million people. And now you have to manage 1 million people and distributing funds and doing all that. And yeah, maybe software can do that for you or something. But I was like, hey, like crypto could make it a lot easier.
And I think revenue in general is a hot topic of how to manage revenue in crypto creative ways. I think the most common ways are like revenue sharing, which is essentially a split of money coming in. You know, $10 comes in and then it immediately gets split. 5 goes this way, 5 goes that way. Okay, that's pretty familiar, and crypto could just automate that split. Then there's the idea of dividends, where you know you have revenue accumulating, and then that revenue is routed to various stakeholders over time. As you said, if you have a bunch of those, that can be pretty arduous to send money to folks. It can be like legally pretty arduous too.
Yeah.
If you're kind of the fiduciary kind of responsible for managing those commitments. The Revnet model, the way I consider it, is token backed revenue. So it's neither of those first two. The revenue goes into the box, and then tokens get emitted and they get split. And then it's up to every token holder to exercise their option whenever they want. The tokens are essentially an option on the revenue. So instead of sending the money to everybody, everyone with tokens can choose to exercise it and access underneath underlying capital whenever they want. And everyone's playing their own game. So it's far less management, far less kind of legal uncertainty or kind kind of based on the rules kind of this past like corporate generation. And I think far more elegant from an incentives perspective, since everyone's playing a longer term game where you're trying to cultivate more and oriented towards growth as opposed to just trying to extract.
Yeah. Definitely. I know for a hot second, the legal brain in me was like, I was like, is this even legal? as a US person. But yeah, no, I think you explained it well.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question and a necessary question, and there's a lot of uncertainty, like unknowns really, and the take that we have that I'm willing to defend because I feel like and we have a kind of legal counsel as well, so maybe they'll kind of have other things to add here, but a Revnet is a deterministic structure, kind of like a Uniswap pool or like Bitcoin. Like once you've created one, it's just going to operate according to its rules. So again, is the onus on the deployer of the thing, because like they're not really managing anything behind the scenes or even kind of able to control anything afterwards. And then like you as an individual or a company or an organization can run like an LLC, which is like a normal LLC. It reports and has tax obligations, kind of like any other company, and you engage the Revnet just like any other token holder. So, you're not doing any governing of the Revnet's treasury. You're just engaging kind of with its financial kind of outcome, just as a token holder, and you can isolate that component and report accordingly. Similarly to how companies relate to Bitcoin, right? Like Bitcoin's an engine, it just kind of do its thing, but everyone who plays the Bitcoin game is going to have various obligations based on how your jurisdiction interprets what Bitcoin is.
Yeah. No, once I found out that like it was essentially immutable, I was like, all right.
That's what you want. That's like, governance is a lot of risk, and it makes sense that folks are weary of scaling out poorly governed things that are worth billions of dollars. And a lot of folks are spending a lot of energy trying to make better governance systems and governance routines. But I'm a big fan of immutability and like let devs do their dev stuff and let networks do their networking stuff and try to get out the way.
Yeah, I think that's what made like when you go try and set up like like I did go try and look at how to like build a Revnet. There was a lot of questions. I was like, oh, I didn't even think about some of these things like ahead of time. It made me think it. And luckily you had some like, best advice or like, like most projects should do X, Y, and Z, like, so you don't get like the what is it, like choice dilemma, or you don't get cold feet, like so I appreciate that.
It takes time. It's a long sales process, so like it's a bunch of, you really have to understand what you want, and I tend to work with folks over months to try to just ping ideas around, try to write priorities of and trade-offs of certain decisions. So some people are very confident online and go and click buttons and wing it and go. Like Shout's Rocket Man, he just builds and he goes and he creates. And I really appreciate folks that have that energy. But then some folks, they're debating running their business on this new type of tokenized system, and it takes a while to really develop that conviction. But which is healthy too. Like there's no right or wrong way to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know someone in the chat named Maria was asking if there was a cost to creating a Revnet.
There's no cost to creating a Revnet. So when you create the Revnet, it's open. You take in funds. There's no cost to take in funds. It's just a Juicebox project under the hood.
Yeah.
So and Juicebox charges a 2.5% fee when funds leave the treasury. The only time funds leave the treasury in a Revnet sense is when you cash out tokens, or when you take out a loan against your tokens. And in both those circumstances, a Revnet can be configured with a cash out tax that the network itself is going to benefit when someone cashes out. Meaning, if both you and I are participants in a particular Revnet, so we both have 10 tokens, if I cash out first, I'm leaving a little bit on the table for the rest of the network. So when you cash out next, then you get a little bit more than I. So the network kind of accrues in its kind of floor price over time. And the fee that kind of gets piped down to Juicebox is 2.5% on top of that. So of the tokens you cash out and tokens you receive back, 2.5% go in, and that goes into the Nana Revnet, which is project ID number 1 on Juicebox v4. So you're also owning a piece of Juicebox revenues as a whole as you pay revenues today. So, let's say you pay $10 in fees if you do a cash out of a certain kind of size, you're going to get a Nano token in return that might, be immediately have like a $3 rebate value or whatever. But let's say in 2 years' time, Juicebox has a lot more traffic, a lot more activity. Maybe those Nano that you got is now worth, $20 or more. It's all to kind of at a rate of how much traffic the ecosystem has grown into, like relative to its issuance cuts over time.
Yeah, I think that's what I liked about it. Again, it's like the upfront like fees, like it seems fine to me. Like,
and these things are hard. I mean, yeah, like they're hard to. Right now, we have more work to do to create great models for folks to base decisions off of. Great tools, great education, documentation. We have folks who enjoy doing this work in this pocket of the internet because kind of it's value aligned, or they're particularly kind of familiar with this kind of thought process. But we need funds to pay for it, and I much prefer getting funds from customers than I do from kind of like investors that expect some outcome at the expense of customers. So it's just kind of meeting people where they are, treating us all as like on the spectrum of builders, of customers, of investors, of our own tooling, but recognizing that money is just energy, and we were just exchanging a form of energy that hopefully we're translating into safer tools, better tools, and kind of reinvesting in ourselves.
What do you think right now is like the ideal customer or example that you want to like tackle next to create a Revnet?
There's a few Revnets brewing that are about to get deployed. I got permission to tease them, so I'll go forth here. The main thing currently is, so Juicebox is a protocol, and a lot of people think Juicebox as it is Juicebox.money, the website. Juicebox.money is a platform that exposes the Juicebox protocol, and it does so very elegantly. It kind of does so just trying to acknowledge all of the bells and whistles it has at its disposal. There's a few other platforms that are building that basically take the Juicebox protocol and expose it to very niche audiences. So there's a science platform called Inevitable Sciences that we're building that helps kind of frontier science projects fundraise and manage revenues, kind of their of their progress, of the products that their research culminates in, and kind of other shippable intermediaries. So excited to help platforms be able to serve their audiences more specifically. Also, Artisan is kind of a platform that helps artists sell artifacts and tell their story and fundraise with match funding. That platform is also going to run as a Revnet. Kind of like both of those fee models are going to be Revnets, and then the actual projects that run within those ecosystems. On the science one, those are going to be Revnets as well. We're still kind of in the nuance of the kind of modeling exactly how it all works, but it's a likelihood that platform is going to be like Revnets all the way down. Artisan is going to be kind of Revnet as the art tokens, like the core of the network that manages endowment funding and the like. And then each Artisan project is going to be a simple fundraiser, because most artists kind of aren't really interested in the tokenomic optimization. They just want to receive funds and then kind of do their craft. So there's two. So and then there's another kind of early talks and other platforms that are more audience niche specific. So from my point of view, it's how can I kind of maintain a solid foundation, the protocol foundation. It's well documented, safe to use, and just help platform builders not have to reinvent the wheel in thinking about how to issue tokens, how to manage fundraisers, how to manage revenues for their audiences, while also running a sustainable business model for themselves that allows them to go out and attract capital, attract, in the case of the sciences, like the best researchers in the world, while not kind of falling into the complaints of I'm trying to do this really meaningful science thing, but why do we have to stick some silly token on top of it? It's like, well, let's try to reach a tokenized conclusion that feels serious, and the more we study it, the more we poke it, the more convinced we are that this is a effective way to organize capital and to apply it in entrepreneurial contexts.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up because I know with flows, initially when I was trying to understand Revnets, I thought it made sense to just do like flows as one Revnet, and that was it. Like it didn't go another layer down where there's another Revnet underneath it. And I think you've worked with Rocketman enough, but yeah, flows, like, there was even like buckets within that. So there was like the content creator ones, I was in that one. There's the software, like the Nounish software one. There was like the beach cleaners. There was like, his argument was like, maybe it actually would be like a Revnet at the bucket level. And then even discussion going down a further level. So like you could do content creator bucket as a whole, or even just me specifically, like my specific project. So I was kind of like, struggling with that for a bit, where I was like, is it like Revnets all the way down, or is it, like what you're saying with like the artisan one, where it's just like, just one, yeah.
It's an open design space. And I think Rocketman and I have gone back and forth on the trade-offs of nesting Revnets, meaning, at the top layer you have ETH in, flows out, and at the second layer you have flows in, like athletes out, and the third layer you have like athletes in, like like NARS out or something. And
exactly.
Is like different. Like that's one option, and then kind of side by side to that, you can have an option where it's like ETH in, flows out, ETH in, athletes out, ETH in, like whatever that kind of third layer is. And we don't really have a lot of examples to point to, like why something has worked in the past or isn't or might not be a good idea. So it's a bunch of theory in that case. But it's nice to talk to someone who kind of can conceptualize those trade-offs, and we can have like high bandwidth conversations even within that pretty abstract design space. And then at the end of the day, like have each other's back to be like, hey, if you believe this is the right way to do it, we can technically put it together. It's just like the consequence might be you have to do something specific in the interface to kind of obscure some nuance, some detail, or you might run into a problem down the road trying to convince or explain something to an investor or to a curious potential customer or something. And I think they're all just hypothesis that the best thing you can do is just hang out with brilliant people who are hard-headed and kind of are going to do their thing regardless, and is willing to just try to solicit as much information on the table as possible before making a decision. And then once you decide, you go for it. You don't stick around twiddling your thumbs or debating, because you just got to try it and see what happens.
No, 100% agreed. I mean, the way that I kind of I think where I settled on that whole debate once I finally made a decision was like, I kind of liked the going down to those multiple levels, just because it all goes back to like the main tree, I guess. Like it keeps going back. That was kind of where my brain was at. And I think that's where I've like settle on. At first, it just seemed like a fragmentation of. I think I was thinking about it more like from an ERC20, like just like why would you launch? Like this is the issue I had with Zora. Like why would you launch every single specific piece of content that I make is its own coin? When I'm like, really, it should be like that's fine if you do it that way, but really, like I want it to be like you're betting on me, not specifically that one piece of content. Like so when they finally pivoted recently to like creator token or whatever, I was like, oh yeah, that's whether and if there's a bunch of like ERC 1155s or ERC 20s underneath it, if you could just swap between the overall like network, that's fine. And the network being like me, the content creator, that's okay. Yeah. But when it wasn't like that, I was like, I had issues with just like every piece being its own token.
Yeah. There's a cohesion that's part of this, and sometimes as engineers, you kind of get lost in the code sauce, but the narrative cohesion, like the social cohesion, it really makes all the difference at the end of the day. And I don't think we've nailed that at like within the Juicebox ecosystem or Revnets. But by any means yet, but I think we're making progress, and I think the Zora folks are too. And like collectively, we're teetering through these different design spaces, and excited to see how they continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also a really good, like hats off to you that like it can support either model. Like that it is that flexible. Like you can go down 3-4 levels of Revnets, or you could just be like, nope, we're just gonna stop at like the website, like artisan, and that's it. And and it could do both. I think that's that's good.
Yeah, and starting at the most flexible kind of Juicebox, bare metal, and then working your way out to like, okay, if you get nervous, a lot of people like see, oh, Revnets are deterministic, you can't change rules, and they're like nervous about it. They want more control. No problem. Let's go to the Juicebox layer. You can configure all the tools. It can act like a Revnet, but you can kind of have, the controls just in case, and then you can change. But then you're going to try to make an argument to someone to pitch in. Maybe they feel uncomfortable with you having control, and so now you have this kind of trade-off space.
Yeah,
and being able to kind of walk someone through that, and actually at any point being like, oh yes, that's technically possible, you can do it, there's nothing in the way, but why might you not want to do that, or what are the trade-offs energetically? I think that's a far more productive conversation than like, oh, this app does one thing, this protocol does one thing and one thing only, and if we move on from that one thing, we're going to deprecate that last thing. So we're always kind of like have our single focus point, and it's like it's hard to it's easier to have a conversation around these nuances when anything is technically possible without opening up a big can of worms of risk or of code. But there's certain reasons why we've concluded kind of our flagship setup to be like this. And it's hard to just say what those are and be like, it is because it is. And it's a lot easier to kind of start from where the person is with their own business journey or their own kind of intent, and then just bouncing ideas off, or kind of when they present a certain idea, maybe calling attention to what that trade-off might be, or kind of how that might play out, and then maybe adjusting conclusions along the way. And through those conversations, like I always learn a bunch. So there's by no means like a right way, like a one direction that those conversations tend toward. But yeah, like it's awesome to run into folks like Rocket Man who get the seed of thought and can push you on a certain set of ideas.
Yeah, and he's going forward, which I love. Yeah, he's a good guy. I've had him on the podcast before, and definitely one of my favorite people of the space. I have 2 more, just quick ones. If you're, I know I've held you.
Let's do it.
All right, I won't hold you too much longer, but kind of sticking a little bit to like the theory versus in real life. Is there anything else that's surprised you in general since launching or going live, where I don't know, maybe you spent a lot of time on some theory and then it hasn't happened in real life, or anything in general, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. I there's so many things that I like to play with because for my own amusement that I don't really expect anyone to really care about. Maybe I have a little inkling of hope that folks will kind of get it, just like in the same way I get it, and they'll kind of go off and run and do something. But they kind of end up just my own toys sometimes, with like the few people lingering in that very niche corner of the internet. One of which is this peer-to-peer decentralized website stack called CropTop. You can go to croptop.eth.sucks if you want to spin up a quick blog on your ENS and host it peer-to-peer. It's kind of like we call it the posting platform. It's very much like a social media where there's no public feed that gets pushed onto you, but rather everyone has their own site, and you can go and read from that site. Like I have mine at jango.eth.sucks.
Yeah.
Or jango.eth.limo, whatever
you sent me down the crop top rabbit hole, by the way.
Yeah. And so it's not like I don't expect that thesis to like really matter in the grand scheme of things, but I like peer-to-peer content.
Yeah.
I think it's the coolest thing. And I don't like social media. Like I'm not someone who gets any joy floating around. Like X or Farcaster doesn't make a difference to me. This is not how I enjoy posting my content. And so for a while I kind of shied away from posting anything or being or kind of recording things that kind of brought me inklings of joy throughout the day. So for me, it was like my own website where I can post shit to, and I know it's not going to be shoved in people's faces. If someone wants to go and look for it, great, it's there, but it's not like trying to compete for attention in a feed or something. So in that sense, like, and there's cool kind of maybe some commercialization components to it. It could be useful for business and things like that, but that's not primary concern. I just think it's really cool. But rarely do I'm also not in any of this to like just to kind of appease a market. I'm in a bunch of this stuff because like I find it beautiful. I enjoy the people I work with these things on. I like the thought experiments. I like writing code, implementing code. So I'm not really looking for shortcuts. I just like doing things because I really love it. And I wouldn't do something that I didn't really love. So, there's not a lot of sunk cost in like trying something or even bringing it to some conclusion and then it falling flat from like a no one cares perspective. Because like, if I didn't enjoy doing it or I didn't want the conclusion, like I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So it's more just like running into happier accidents when those energies align, when like something I'm excited about or I'm helping a good team work on actually intersects with other builder communities or other kind of communities, and we're able to kind of join composite of various kind of aspects of what you work on to create a new holon of further potential.
Yeah, that's where the fun happens. All right. So last one, so I know I've held you over by a little bit extra. I do appreciate your time for doing this, by the way, and I think for everyone here, Revnets, I also learned by doing, so most likely we might see a Revnet from my side, and then I just document it, share it to my newsletter and stuff like that. So that's how I go about learning stuff. But I did have one last one. It's a very simple one, a little bit of an odd one. So I got started initially with this whole content thing as bite-sized bits of news and information for people to digest. So it started off with the title as Pinchos, but we've pivoted from there. So with that theme, I've asked every guest, what is your favorite snack?
Favorite snack is...
And there's no repercussions. So you could say like chocolate every day and no repercussions.
Yeah. I am a big fan of, there's like a peanut snack we eat in Brazil called a paçoca, which is kind of like sugar and crushed peanuts in a little cube. and you can do all kinds of delicious kind of versions of it. And they're delicious, they're energetic, they're just amazing. And I've only found it in that corner, like in this, in Brazil. It's not really like a thing that's that kind of like the M&M company has figured out how to take and scale, but it's
found a way to bastardize it.
yeah, exactly. Like a good paçocas are great. I also love, there's another candy that I like making as well, but really like eating, is the bala de banana, which is a banana candy. It's basically cooked down banana, and you kind of roll it around in some like coconut flakes, and you just have this like chewy cooked banana bit that's like sweet and delicious, and it's so good.
Sounds amazing. I'm learning Brazilian Portuguese, so now I have 2 things to add to my list of cultural immersion.
There you go. Yeah, I guess I accidentally picked two very Brazilian things.
Yeah. Maria in the chat said she likes pacoca. Or
paçoca.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. There you go.
That's hella funny. Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.
And go to, for folks who want to get the easier the more tactile version of all this, retail.banny.eth.sucks is a great storefront experience to shop around for digital art assets, and the funds of which fund the Ban Revnet too. So come and join that network as well. You can kind of follow the breadcrumbs from that site and end up everywhere else. I think it's a great starting point for the general audience, though.
Awesome. Yeah, I put the link in there for anyone that is interested. I'll also have the link to your memo for Revnets, crop top, if anybody wants to go down that rabbit hole with me, and anything we talked about. Yeah, I'll share it all in here, and it'll be in the descriptions for the show. All right, welcome back. So this week's cast-off question, and for those not familiar, cast-off's where I want to hear from you, the audience. This week's cast-off question is, what do you think about Revnets? Is this something that you can see yourself using as a content creator or someone trying to start a business on chain? It seems pretty awesome, and it saves you a lot of time in terms of getting revenue back to people, like dispersing that, especially as it needs to scale. So if you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. Thank you for that. If you're listening to this episode on Pods, make sure to collect it. And if not, go check out pods.media and you can see my podcast in there. Collect the episode. If you like this episode, make sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to it. I'll also be putting all these episodes fully on chain on Arweave, so they'll be here forever. I also have a new podcast called Zero Sync, which is a premium only podcast. It's like deep dives, 15 minutes, pretty awesome stuff. All right. See you guys on social media. See you next week. Peace.